guys, Ron here, and welcome back to the series in which I document my walks around the world and create a few Pokemon based on what I see on my walk. As I stroll, I usually point out all the potential neat stuff I see that could make for some creative new Pokemon designs, and then we'll put them together and draw some cool Pokemon. So I hope you follow along with this imaginative exercise and tweet at me some Pokemon you created using the stuff you see in this video, or even on your own walks. Make sure to check out the previous Pokemon I created in my last video by clicking the card in the top right corner, because this is finally a series now that you guys clearly enjoy it, so I'm happy to make more. It's super fun. Now in New York, for some reason it tends to snow a bit later into the winter nowadays, so today's theme is winter. That can mean anything you want it to be. Hot chocolate, a warm fire, making snow angels, transmuting snowmen, hiding a dead body in the snow so nobody knows what you did. It's all good. But here's the sitch. I'm walking while snow is still falling, so let's see how far I can go before I get too cold and walk back home. But before I get going, here are some evergreens outside my house. They're the partial inspiration for the Snover line, and I think seeing them covered in snow is beautiful. We also have this outdoor heater, and its little cap is covered in snow. We could make a fire-type Pokemon that lives in a snow area and has a little hat on its head to shield from falling snow. Not bad, but that's pretty much Snover. I do feel a bit bad walking on this fresh snow. It's very clean. I also think it's interesting how the snow accumulates between the grooves of the tree bark. We can make a Pokemon that has nothing to do with snow, but give it a really cool pattern inspired by this tree, or maybe just make its color scheme white, brown, and green. As I was walking, I noticed all these bald spots on the road that don't have any snow, and realized that in the middle were little grains of rock salt without any snow touching them. That's super interesting, honestly. What if we had a rock type made of salt that melts ice? Maybe we can combine it with a type that's weak to ice so it's beneficial. And look how cute this little pebble is. It would make for a great Pokemon. But let's keep on going to see if we can combine it with anything else. I love looking at this snow-covered branch because it kinda reminds me of an animal. Maybe a honey badger. It's a reverse Typhlosion after all. What if we had a normal ice-type badger that camouflages in its terrain because it simply looks like a snow-covered twig? But honestly, then it would just simply look like a brown honey badger. Nothing special about that. These bushes look dope with some snow on them. Can't really think of anything with that. Maybe you can at home. And this is kind of intimidating when you think about it. A never-ending army of evergreens. This thing went on for blocks. Imagine an army of Abomasnow, but darker. Now I never noticed that when you zoom in on moss, you can see little buds. And I guess I have buds on the brain because the bud on these branches gave me the best idea. One that we can combine with the rock salt we saw earlier. What if we made a grass-type bud Pokemon that was encased in rock salt, which protects it from the snow and ice? If it wasn't protected, it would meet the fate of the other grass types like these branches. Poor little branches. Although that slush looks super refreshing. I wish it was edible actually. Now it's getting super cold, so let's go back inside, open Photoshop, and make some Pokemon. I think this will be the first 3-stage family in this series, so we're gonna start off with a cutie and end up with a fierce monster. Now I know the concept I want to draw. It's a rock with roots coming out of the bottom as little legs that it uses to hide whenever it's not walking, and inside is the grass-type bud. That means we gotta give it some bud-like pattern so it's not just a diamond, and I want a very simple mouth and eyes. But even though I like this face, it looks too much like a Snorunt, and the lines are too much. It doesn't look like it's inside the rock salt. It just looks like the face is on the outside of the rock. I tried shading it in so we understand the concept, but the design isn't there yet. I think the jagged rock on the outside makes sense, but let's contrast it by having the bud more bulbous and smooth. It also makes it a bit cuter, like a little baby, and making the smile rounder also helps differentiate it from Snorunt. And now let's make it more like a bud by having the, I guess, leaves drop a bit. And that's basically it. All I gotta do is make the sketch pop out a bit more so you guys understand the design, and it'll give me a nice space for when I draw the line art. And I shaded it in to show you guys how the darker part is what's visible, while the lighter gray, which connects its face and the feet, will be a bit blurry. But it's gonna be brown in the final render, of course. Now, just like the Metagross line, I know I want the middle stage to be double that of what the first stage was, so why not make it an X shape? It's already a slow Pokemon, so it would make sense if it moved around by wobbling like this. But the question is, how asymmetrical do we make it? And how far has the bud bloomed? I think just a little bit, and now it's appropriate to give a more angular smile, and since I know I want the final evolution to have meaner eyes, we can give a nice transition by having the eyes of this Pokemon circles, just like the pre-evolved form, but a bit angrier. The roots leading to its legs are more visible too, and the feet are actual feet, not like little nubs. I thought this space was a bit empty, but I think adding more roots there would be a bad decision. And now I'm just shading it in to make it more clear, but once we had the first one, it was easy to make a natural progression, but I know I want the final evolution to move well and have a more dynamic body, like it's more of an actual animal and not a bud in a rock. The feet also have to eventually become actual toes, but the shape of this Pokemon was hard to come up with. The only good thing I can take away from this design is its more animal-like face. I really like the face I experimented with, but it no longer looks like a plant, and again, I have no idea whatsoever for the body. What type of body do I give it? An ape, a humanoid, a quadruped like a wolf, but this new face does look like a natural progression from the rest of its family, but not the face's shape. And I know that I want to keep some rock salt crystals coming from each side of its head like ears, which makes sense since it had those in its previous form. But what about the body? 3 legs? I don't want it to be too much like a Gigalith. I was honestly panicking when I made this one. It does look like the evolved form of the previous one, but I don't like this design. This new one is close, but it looks like it's floating. But I'll use it for inspiration for the next sketch. I finally love the bud on the inside because it looks like both a plant and animal. It's not blooming yet or anything, which is what I want, and I finally gave it sturdy legs, so it looks like it's on the ground and not floating. I gave it some pupils, and I also made the top more asymmetrical and interesting, because that's kind of what we've been doing for the other forms, so why didn't I think of doing this earlier? I did the same thing with the legs, and I also thought it would look more cohesive with the big brawny tail in the back with the bud on it. Now I'm just shading it in for clarity. But there we have it. God damn, that was fun. I love them. Halite evolves into Seepeline at level 23, and then evolves into Thaur when traded. The name Halite comes from halite, also known as rock salt, and light because it's small. Seepeline comes from the sepal of a flower, and saline, a word that indicates a solution is salty, and Thaur comes from thaw and flower. Their ability is Rock Salt, which weakens Ice-type moves, cause yes, even with the Rock typing, this thing would have been weak to Ice without said ability. That's like the whole point of the Pokemon. Just look at them for a second and appreciate their shiny exterior. I hope that just like Halite creeped into a rock for protection, so will this family creep into your heart. Okay, back outside. Now, yesterday it was 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and today it's literally 55, so exactly 24 hours later, 90% of the snow has melted, even my logo. So, less cool frozen water, but at least it doesn't hurt my face to be outside. I can't believe how one day can be so snowy and then the other day has like no snow on the ground. Let's give it up for the sun, guys. He's got some power. Though, to be fair, that's on the Black Path. Deeper into the woods, there's still snow near this babbling brook. It's very picturesque. It's weird how I found some roses here out in the middle of nowhere. Who throws away roses? What happened here? What's the story? Can I make a Pokemon out of it? Because if not, then I don't really care. As you can see, all the melted snow is flooding up the path. That's pretty dangerous, unless it isn't. I don't really know. Now remember the bear that we made in the last episode? I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but now knowing that this is actually a memorial for someone who's passed away, and this is probably their stuffed animal, doesn't that kind of remind you of Vitali and Ascend? It's literally like their origin. Hopefully I was allowed to film that memorial, just in case I am leaving. Okay, now I'm far from the conspiracy type of person. I inherently trust authority. But why are there so many traffic cones everywhere? If you watch this series, you'll know that we've been running into tons of them, and for some reason I see a lot of them today. Look at these! And this big boy right here! What's this guy doing in the middle of a field? And another one! This one's on a truck! This one's inside someone's property! This one's out in the wild! And it's an old one. Ew. There has to be a Pokemon under them. Look, they come in pairs! This one's shiny! There are even more that I didn't film, so I gotta finally make a Hermit Crab Traffic Cone Pokemon that I've been talking about for 3 episodes now. It's gonna be based on those hermit crabs that have cone shells, and why not combine that with an actual hermit, which is, you know, just a wandering old man that's isolated. Now you may think, why the hell would such a Pokemon exist? Well, if you think about it, if there were so many traffic cones in the Pokemon world, why wouldn't a crab use it as a home and also shoot water out of the tiny end at the top, which would pressurize the water and make it more effective and damaging in battle? It makes so much sense in the Pokemon world. So let's make the basic shape of the Pokemon. There's 2 parts really, the crab and the cone. Nothing too crazy. And it's an old cone, so it's got some scratches, but I don't want to see the bottom of the cone. Instead, I'm going to make it top down, and I'm going to replace those antennas or whatever is on the face of a hermit crab with something that looks more like a mustache, so it looks like an old hermit who wants you to get away from its cone. Just adjusting the cone a bit, and I think this is a pretty solid first attempt. Let's dive a bit deeper. I really like one of those stanky eyes, just so it doesn't literally have the eyes of a Dwebble. It was then that I decided also to give it a beard. It's not actual hair, just a pattern under its mouth that makes it look like an old man's beard. Now I don't want to make both arms face down, that would be an uninteresting pose, so I decided to have the other arm stretch out so we can see its tiny little pincers, and honestly that's pretty much it. Here it is colored, and I dubbed the Skepticone. A person who's skeptical doubts others, and this Pokemon doesn't trust anybody, except, you know, its loving trainer. Now Skepticone is pure water and has the ability Funnel, which means that water comes out of the tiny cone hole, pressurizing it greatly. That gives special water-type moves a boost, which is good because his special attack isn't the best. His physical attacks are a bit stronger, so it evens out, giving it more of a choice in moves. So I really hope you're enjoying this series, enough to share it with friends and leave a like to show your support. Please check out the previous parts if you haven't, and make sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter to show me what you came up with. Check the description for the music I used, the shirts I made, my Patreon where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early, and if you don't have a Patreon account, you can always become a member by clicking the join button. I'll see you guys very soon.